Thanks again for staying with 8 and 7 Prime. My name is Cindy Mabi. Good evening to you. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is questioning Mineral Resources Minister Mosebenzi Zwane's mining charter. Ramaphosa says South Africa should negotiate with mining companies over the new regulations to spread the country's mineral wealth equitably. Minister Zwane's charter proposes that 30% of mining houses' ownership should be in black hands within 12 months. However, Ramaphosa says consensus is key to sharing the wealth of mineral resources. And this is a shocking stance for a leader who should be supporting the governing party's drive for radical economic transformation. And the stance taken by Cyril Ramaphosa, who used to be a director at one of the country's mining giants, raises questions about protecting the interests of a few at the expense of the majority. And here's what Cyril Ramaphosa says about the mining charter, and I quote, "Parties must sit and talk about their shared interests, shared future, and how best they can reach a consensus. In the end, the South African mining industry needs investors, but at the same time, it needs to transform," end quote. And meanwhile, progressive black organizations like Black First and Land First disagrees with Ramaphosa.
We see that a minister, Zwane, has come out with a very progressive, very radical, very visionary mining charter, which for the first time puts in the hands of black people the real possibility for us to benefit in the wealth of our nation. The defenders of white monopoly capital are opposed to the charter, and they're using their positions as leaders of the ANC inside the ANC to try to undermine Minister Mosebenzi Zwane and the charter itself. The ANC is divided. The one faction is led by the president of the country, is a progressive group, and you see a minister such as Zwane, who has been able to interpret correctly the call for radical economic transformation. And then you have another faction, which is led by Cyril Ramaphosa, Pravin Gordhan, Trevor Manuel, Tito Mboweni. Those are agents of imperialism and white monopoly capital. So the silence that we see is generated by this faction, which is pro-white monopoly capital, which wants things to stay the way they are, which wants black people to remain excluded.
And Ramaphosa's stance raises the following key questions. Has Ramaphosa exposed himself as a front for wealthy capitalists by rejecting the mining charter, as analysts have said? And shouldn't Ramaphosa be pursuing the ANC's drive for radical economic transformation in mining? And does the mining charter reveal deep divisions within the ANC on matters of economic reform? And joining us live in studio, Sitake Khomo, political analyst, and we have Botsang Moelwa, a political analyst. Thabo Mutle is the ANC Youth League NEC member, and Thabo Modao is the South African National Civic Organization Regional Secretary and Mining Representative, joining us in studio. Good evening, gentlemen, and thanks so much for joining us. Some would be very quick to defend Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa in his pragmatic approach to how transformation should happen. What is your stance or take on his response?
Well, first of all, one would have to agree to a greater extent that transformation should not be a negotiable thing. It should be a given that it should happen in South Africa. In actual fact, it is long overdue that radical economic transformation should have happened long time ago, but nowadays, because of the urgency thereof, the emphasis is there that it should happen now. I think it is very unfortunate that you find a senior government leader criticizing a fellow cabinet minister in the same government. It's very unfortunate. But having said that, I would like to also make an observation. My observation is a matter of housekeeping is critical if you have to sell something. Mr. Zwane, the Minister of Mineral Resources, should have a compelling business case. That is that he should have actually packaged the message in such a way that it will show what a business case is actually bringing. What actually informs a shift from 26% to 30%, which is what actually is the crux of the whole thing. I would like to believe that then you will have to then zoom into what the critical cost impacts are from moving to the current situation as to how it will differ then to the envisaged 30%. So I did not have a sense that when they then unveiled the charter, they had done that homework. And hence then, the observation, then the attack by the Deputy President.
Do you think it's justified?
You know, Ntate is actually being kind to start quoting figures and justification towards why 30%. The answer is very simple. The justification for equitably sharing in the mineral resources of this country lies in the founding manifesto of the African National Congress. We should recall, all of us, and certainly the Deputy President of the African National Congress, who happens to be the Deputy President of the country, has forgotten that the African National Congress in 1912, when the chiefs and the pastors and the reverends got together to form this organization, their founding manifesto was based on Maibuye. It was based on land. It was based, again, on the 1955 Freedom Charter decision that says, and Ramaphosa is supposed to know that, the Freedom Charter that leads, directs, and governs the African National Congress says the people of South Africa will equitably share the resources, the minerals of the country. Now, one minister comes under Ramaphosa, says, let's just take 30% for now. It is still not equitable because black people in this country, they constitute 83% of the population, but they are being given only 30%. And then the Deputy President says he must go back to the drawing board. What he said is, Minister Zwane said, this policy or position or document was taken through the ANC branches up to the top 6. Mr. Ramaphosa responds on Twitter and says, go back to the drawing board. What kind of leadership do we have in this country where ministers and the Deputy President, who is supposed to be in charge of government business?
Yeah, just on that preamble, the two tabos, we'll start with the ANC Youth League NEC member. Why then would there be a shift in how ANC leaders respond to what clearly has been an agenda or a mandate for radical economic transformation? Mind you, with the preamble and the history that Putsang has just given us of what it means in sharing in the wealth of this country.
Okay, thanks. The reality is that the Deputy President is taking a popular stand. And the reality of the matter is that I've engaged with the minister. The top 6 has been taken into confidence with the charter. And they supported the charter. And for him to go out of the collective and take a particular stand for his own benefit, I don't think it's actually unbecoming. Now, because we are pushing for this radical economic transformation, it can be at this stage when we are taking a step towards the right direction that the Deputy President opt to take that popular stand against what seeks to transform the lives, in particular, in this case, the life of our people in the mining sector, which we know their struggle, of course.
Yeah, I mean, very interestingly as well, we had David van Wyk, a mining expert, when we had the discussion earlier in the week, or I think it might have been yesterday, who said that if you take the indigenization program of Botswana and Zimbabwe, that the investors didn't run to the hills when that black transformation government program was introduced. In fact, they came to the table realizing that once it is government policy, regardless of the size of your organization, you're going to have to succumb to what the majority people need and demand. But we see a different voice, a different tonality coming out.
I want to come in there. Where we are, the African National Congress that has always identified white monopoly capital in this country as the enemy of the people would not. So I don't expect any leader of the African National Congress to speak against the charter. However, this hypocrisy again, we have always raised this matter. And speaking from the mine community's perspective, people like the Deputy President, they own shares on our behalf. And that's our argument. And why we're saying that he is a beneficiary, he himself is a beneficiary of transformation. Is that not the case? Because how it works, you have got the Freedom Charter, which says we're going to share in the mineral resources. You have got the Constitution. You have got then the MPRTA, which they are a beneficiary of. You take, for instance, a mining town where we come from in Delmas. There's over 18 mines. Some are prospecting now where you are sitting. Not a single person, that community in that area, owning a simple share. Now, this charter, what it does, it is very specific. It says, that's why we're going to defend it, because it says communities are going to be owning 8% where we're sitting. So you have, you had a situation where you had a limited few who were actually participating. So where we're sitting, he is a beneficiary, and we shouldn't think that he should be defending in himself.
Are you satisfied with that detail?
I would still like to maintain that DMR has not done a thorough homework.
Marachata wasn't just constituted or come up. It's not a concept that started, Maubane.
Yeah,
it's been sitting there and back and forth.
The question is what informs a shift from 26 to the... We have to actually be scientific in our determination of substantive impacts of moving from 26 to 30. Let us get to understand as to why is this argument.
I want to come on one
but can I finish, please?
Okay.
I would like to sustain the argument that if you package your message in such a way that it actually motivates why then you need to shift from 26 to 30, so then you have to then talk directly to the economic impacts of that and say the mining industry, the Chamber of Mines and others, why are they saying they cannot afford it now?
But just for clarity as well, can I just raise this way? You used to have the 25 plus 1% of one person who will then become a director or whatever, and that would be regarded as being transformed or compliant. So now the communities are being included. There's also a percentage for fund, be it rehabilitation.
But have we done the homework? My question is, has the DMR done the homework that will defeat all the arguments against...
But a consultation doesn't necessarily need to have consensus. I mean, how long
no, the question is it affordable?
As a country where we are, we are not even supposed, and that's my view, we are not even supposed to be thinking those percentages, because the founding manifesto of the ruling party, the Freedom Charter of the ruling party, is talking about equitable distribution of the resources. People are saying, let me finish this, people are saying you will upset the markets, and they call the investors. What are investors doing in mines? They're not investing, they're exploiting. People who own these mines, they're not investing in the natural mineral resources of this country. They are exploiting the natural mineral resources of this country.
But you can't run away from the fact that there are impacts.
There will be
cost
impacts.
Is there, but the question is, have that been determined?
Why
you will need to have a determination of what...
I hear where you're coming from, I think let's move on from here.
To me, that's very, very important.
Yes, but I'm just saying, can we just move? We've been laboring this point.
Why will there be cost when black people come in? Are there no cost at the moment? Why
but we don't know how these transactions...
We are saying black people...
No. I just want to get back to this. We don't know how these deals are structured, whether it is a loan account or whether you have to go borrow as a black person to qualify for the shares. The nitty-gritties will get to it. I think just as a principle, in terms of dealing with inequality and including black people in the economy is where we need to be looking at. Whether it's the percentage and how the mechanisms are going to unfold is something that we can do.
But you can't run away from the impacts. At the end of the day, the bottom line is that the figures are there.
You see, where we're sitting...
To me, it's very important that you have to... That's what DMR's homework should have been. That as they actually could motivate moving from 26 to 30, or even beyond, what are the socio-economic and even cost impacts to the mining industry, so that they can defeat the argument that we cannot afford that. Because that's a standing argument today from the Chamber of Mines to say that we cannot move from where we are.
Yeah, business has always pleaded poverty and threatened job losses, etc. How do we move forward though, Thabo?
The challenge is that the Chamber of Mines and business itself will always try to protect themselves. They will not give our people beneficiation in a silver platter. Therefore, the argument falls apart. We know for a fact that they will never give our people what belongs to them in a silver platter. The reality is that even that 30% is not enough, because it does not reflect the demographics of our society, because 90% of our society are blacks and 10% is white, which are the owners of these mines. Therefore,
I mean, and the operative word is that the owner, in the sense that, you know, they've got the title deed or whatever to prove, you know what I mean? We can argue that the land was stolen, but how do you work around the law?
We should not, as a nation,
to transform the economy?
Put a blind eye on the historical atrocities of this country. We should not put a blind eye that there was slavery, there was apartheid, there was colonialism, now there's new colonialism. We cannot sit and say Ntate Komo acquired this title deed of this mine that he had bought from Ntate van der Slagbergte, who stole that mine, who killed people to can have that land. We cannot as a nation think like that. We should be able to be a brave nation. We should be able to say, and I don't know what that people are doing. Let's speak simple language that our people understand.
Exactly.
Well, let's speak simple language. Simple language is there's a mine. It makes 100 rand. You can 100 rand. This mine, it's 100% owned by white foreigners. The government is coming and saying, this mine that is making 100%, can you give 30 rands of the 100 rands to black people? How will that influence production and all that when black people are primarily or merely shareholders in the production of that mine? You don't change management, you don't change production, you don't change the system that you've been applying. You are simply saying black people own this land. Can they own 30% of whatever you are doing there? Yeah. Why would people worry about the mine production and the mine?
Yeah, but so how do we reach equality if we go with what CR17 is saying, that we need to have a discussion, we need to have consensus, and talk about, you know, the impact and how we also share the wealth. So sorry,
it means then, Cindy, with that narrative, we will not arrive at a point where we have radical economic transformation in this country. Because where we are sitting, we're saying this 30%, it is not sufficient, in fact. How do you then look at, because we have said we want a gradual increment. It means from this 30%, we'll then be told about this narrative. And the narrative that we are given to, if you speak about the rand that is falling and all this, I'm speaking from a layman's point of view. And I'm saying what you speak about, that it is not applicable to me, because you speak to me about this rand that I don't even have where we're sitting. So where we are sitting, we're saying 30% is actually little. We should have even gone a bit higher than 30%. But then again, Cindy, maybe coming there, radical economic transformation, we have said Minister Zwane, he is leading the way, which is good. But you also need to transform even in the other sectors. Like we have said, the financial sector. There is a need to transform in that sector, so that, because if the financial sector remains untransformed, it is going to stifle the implementation of the mining charter where we're sitting.
Yeah, the popular narrative is the fact that with a radical economic transformation is going to come discomfort. Number one, the market jitters. Secondly, the exodus of investors. You can cite all sorts of examples as how economic transformation should not happen. So in your expert opinion, Rekom, dealing with the issues of the past and the necessity of having to finally turn this whole thing on its head to benefit the majority indigenous people, how then do we get over this hurdle that we've always been warned against, of not upsetting the markets and investors?
I think the most important thing, I don't always agree with the Deputy President of the Republic, but this time around, I think there is something that actually triggers him to think the way he does. And I happen to be amenable to believe that something that says sustainability of the industry is key. Before you even talk of radical transformation, you have to also consider what are those impacts on their bottom line as mining companies.
But what has changed there? This is what we've been hearing for the past 23 years. What has changed? What is different?
What I'm saying is that we have not, by we I say the DMR, I don't think they've done a thorough homework that informs shifting from 26 to 30. That's what I'm saying. It would have been very, very helpful.
It's a 4%
difference. Is that your biggest
I'm not crying.
I'm saying.
I am questioning.
Cindy asked a question, and it's very critical.
Yeah.
What is it that can make the Deputy President of the ruling party and of the country to differ with a minister who is serving under him? Exactly. And which he is supposed to be talking the policy of the organization and the policy of government. This is the policy of government. The minister says, we have consulted. When people say, we wonder if the DMR has consulted sufficiently, this issue of land ownership, this issue of sharing in the minerals of the country.
I think the policy conference must come even sooner. I know it's in a week's time. Sorry, can I just have...
The conference is around the corner, but the fact of the matter is that the Deputy President has been consulted, has been taken into confidence about the charter. Hence, I'm saying it is very unbecoming or unfortunate that he has taken that stand. But the reality of the matter is that here, within Tatehomu, we are dealing with a colonized person who went through a colonized system who wants to protect the unprotected.
No, I think you get it very
well.
Yeah,
have him respond. Are you colonized?
No, not at all.
In your mind.
You misunderstand. I'm saying to you that, like the Deputy President has raised the concern, we have to then deal with what are those concerns. I'm saying that DMR has not done a thorough homework in terms of packaging what actually informs.
So their pitch, they failed in the sales pitch.
There's no package.
What makes us say they did not? What evidence as a nation?
Well, from the reaction of the mining charter.
Of the mining charter. When you talk radical, there will never be a mutual understanding. When you have stolen from me, when you have robbed me and I want my assets back, there will never be a mutual understanding.
But Cindy,
what we should be worried about is the minister is putting 30%. Are we going to wait another 23 years to have another 30%? Then we have control of the ownership of the land.
Let's have another perspective.
And Cindy, you see how subjective these people who defend white monopoly capital are. They would only focus. Why have they not expressed themselves on the other contents of the charter? They only speak on this. Now, why do we want to reject the charter on the basis of that? Let's note what Ntatekhom is saying. We don't agree.
How bankable is it? How bankable is it? That's the question.
Maybe I understand that the finance, the sustainability, feasibility studies, all of those are very important. The science is very important. The methodology. But what happens about the benefit though? Let's say the 30% will have material difference for so many communities, and especially black people that are still disenfranchised, that are outside the economy. We're crying to say, let's widen the pool.
But how does it talk to the sustainability question? On the mining sector itself, the owner of mines, I don't think they are in principle against transformation. They have said it publicly. They said they are not.
They just have
to be engaged so that they could be able to look at what are the sustainability issues.
If the Chamber of Mines in the Republic of South Africa was not against transformation, that white board of Chamber of Mines would have not been white. That's number one. Their leadership. Number two, it has been 23 years that there's democracy, or supposed to be democracy in this country. The Chamber of Mines is still having this mines owned by foreign shareholders.
Yeah.
You can't come and tell us that the Chamber of Mines is pro-transformation.
Can we take this? Sorry. Can we just bring it in? Can we just bring it in? Is this a deliberate reform? Is this, in your view, a deliberate rejection of the mining charter by CR17? Tabon, you can correct me by saying maybe go back to the drawing board, might be seeking clarity, and I'm being charitable.
Yeah.
But do you view it as a deliberate rejection of the charter as it stands?
No, I don't think it is that deliberate, because what on the other side the mining charter is saying, they've said they've not been consulted sufficiently, but in the main they're acknowledging that they've been consulted. By that means they've inputted they've contributed towards shaping of that particular charter. Now, for them to come at the end of the finalization of the charter, which is still going to go through processes and public participation, so forth and so on, before it becomes fully legislated, it is unprecedented from the Deputy President to utter what he has uttered. So I can't say from his side what is it that he seeks to achieve, but the narrative is that people who are in the comfort zone, they will never, ever allow any other people to enter into that space. That is what they are seeking to protect, their comfortability in that space.
From where I'm sitting, it is deliberate. They do not want the charter on the basis that why the blanket approach? Ntatekhom would not sitting here. Are they all below 26% where we're sitting? Because the charter itself says it acknowledges those who are beyond, and it rewards, in fact, that's the correct wording. It rewards those who are beyond 30%. Why do you then have the Deputy President, you have then the Chamber of Mines, which then seems to assume that everybody is below? I said the other day, can they quantify, and said you might be surprised that some of them are beyond that, and they are actually beyond. Therefore, what is their argument? Hence, I am saying those who are beyond, how were they able to how were they able to arrive there with the narrative that Ntate Kgomo is bringing? Where I'm saying
I read the recommendation and the proposal. And let me tell you, that's one of the most progressive policy positions that this country has ever come up since 1994. I had my own reservation on one paragraph only, which many would not like. The paragraph that talks about even those who are naturalized. Remember, in South Africa, according to the Constitution, you've got naturalized citizens, and they are also entitled to benefit from that. That was my only reservation. But that charter is very progressive. All South Africans, if they care about the best interest of sharing in the minerals of this country, they will support that. I still do not understand why the Deputy President of the country, who is the leader of the ANC business in government,
I think
those
who are rewarded
to a minister.
I think the most important thing to me is to actually engage with the like-minded people like the Deputy President and me as to what are the critical bottom line issues that have to be taken.
He should have raised that. He should have raised that when
Zwane
was taking. No, but
Zwane should have packaged the messages. What is the content of the consultation? We don't know what the content
is. The Deputy President of this country and all those who are against this charter should have raised their concerns when the Minister of Minerals took this document to them when it was still in infancy stages as a proposal. They could have said, but we are concerned about A, B, C, D, E. They had that opportunity, which we don't have. Now they come after the document has been presented to the public and they want to question it. That is disingenuous.
All right, we're going to have to take the rest of it offline. I'm afraid we are out of time. Sitaki Kgomo, political analyst, joining us in studio. Botsang Mwilwa, also a political analyst. Thabo Motle is the ANC Youth League NEC member. And Thabo Modau is the Regional Secretary for the South African National Civic Organization and is also a mining representative. And you at home, thanks indeed for joining us. We'll be back after this.